What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Patch 6.9 was a huge game changer for the League of Legends meta, and as we're all adjusting to the massive amount of changes that took place in that mid-season patch, to tweak some of those adjustments we've got patch 6.10 coming along to make some more changes. It's a patch filled with buffs and a lot of pretty neat changes, and it's likely going to be a pretty solid patch as far as patches go. And with every new patch bringing us a bunch of new changes, there's also a bunch of hidden or indirect changes that happen as a result. As well, don't forget that we did have a balance hotfix about a week ago that actually nerfed Malzahar and buffed Cassiopeia, Vladimir, and Swain. So I'll be taking those into account as we go through this video. And as well, I gotta give some big props to ProGuides.com for helping me with the editing on this video. They recently released a new service that allows you to ask questions to high-rank players and get a response almost instantly, and I think it's pretty damn awesome. But you don't have to take it from me because they got a free trial that gets you full access, so you can check them out and decide for yourself if you like it or not. And without further ado, let's get started. And jumping right into things, the first hidden or indirect buff that we have taking place on patch 6.10 is going to be assassins in the mid lane, and this is happening for a multitude of reasons. First off, we have a lot of buffs to immobile mages taking place on this patch. The immobile mages are great matchups for assassins in lane since their hypermobile style allows them to have lots of kill pressure and outplay potential on those types of champions. And because of the buffs, you're going to see these mages being played a lot more, and as a result, the assassin champions should see better matchups in lane more often. As well, the nerfs to Malzahar help out assassins quite a lot as well. Although assassins typically do well versus immobile mages, Malzahar is one of the exceptions, as his point-and-click ultimate stun and his relative tankiness allow him to perform extremely well and be an incredible counterpick towards assassins. But since he's getting a hefty nerf on this patch, especially if you take into account the hotfix from a few days ago, then what you're going to see is a big decline in popularity for Malzahar. And although he'll still be a good counterpick to assassins, the key thing to understand here is that since he's getting nerfed, he's going to be played a lot less, and as a result, if you're playing assassins in the mid lane, you're going to be getting a better matchup for an easy laning phase more often. However, it is kind of true, I guess, that the barrier buff kind of hurts assassins a little bit, but overall, if you take the hotfix and the entire patch into account, I would see this as an overall power increase for assassins that is taking place. The next group of champions getting an indirect buff, I have to say, is a little bit of a simple one because it's the attack speed focused junglers. The Blood Razor jungle enchant is getting a really significant buff on this patch to both the stats and the on-hit damage, and as a result, the attack speed focused junglers are getting a step up. Since Blood Razor is a core item for those champions, and you would pretty much always pick it up as your first item, this results in a solid, consistent power increase for any of the champions wanting to pick up a Blood Razor in their jungle path. The next thing that is getting a hidden buff on this patch is one that is super interesting since it's not actually a buff that is happening to a champion. Usually the hidden buffs that we talk about in these videos are always something that affect a specific champion or group of champions, but for one of the first times ever, we have a hidden buff that is happening to an item. That's right, Ginsu's Rage Blade, the item, is getting a nice step up on this patch. Ginsu's Rage Blade is transformed into kind of like the Infinity Edge of on-hit items, and as a result of that and a couple of the changes, we're going to see it become a better item than it was previously. First off, the buff to Blood Razor is actually an improvement to Ginsu's. The two items were often built alongside each other and have nice synergy, and since the on-hit effect of Blood Razor was given a buff, that means that it's going to be stronger when you're getting the double hit proc from the Ginsu's Rage passive. And as well, we have the AP ratio buffs that are happening to Nocturne, Shyvana, and Master Yi. All three of those champions are ones that might have potential to pick up a Ginsu's in their item path, and since the AP ratios are being put in place specifically to make Ginsu's more powerful on those champions, well, it's pretty simple. Ginsu's is going to be more powerful on those champions, and just stronger, more valuable, and a more useful item. And so overall, Ginsu's Rage Blade is getting a pretty nice step up on this patch, and it's actually pretty cool to see an indirect buff happen to an actual item rather than to a champion. The next group of champions receiving an indirect buff are high-range poke mid laners. This is going to be champions like Lux, Ziggs, and maybe Azir and stuff, just the super high-range mages that are played in the mid lane. And this is happening as a result of the buff to Barrier. Barrier, the summoner spell, is getting a pretty sweet buff to its cooldown on this patch, and as a result, those champions are going to take Barrier and make really effective use of it, namely the high-range poke mages. They're going to get a nice step up as a result of one of their key summoner spell options getting an improvement. And for the next indirect buff that is taking place on this patch, we have champions who like to run up to people and engage, without having any mobility spells in their kit. So this is going to be champions like Olaf, Singed, and Hecarim and stuff like that. And that's because Ghost is getting a pretty hefty buff on this patch that will impact the summoner spell quite a lot, and it's going to become a much more viable option for champions that can make use of it. The champions especially like Olaf and Hecarim, who perform really well with Ghost, get a nice step up as a result of the buff to the summoner spell, and anyone who wants to take Ghost as well gets a step up as a result of this change. Now with the hidden buffs covered, let's go for a rundown of what you can expect will go down on this patch. The biggest winner of this patch definitely has to go to Cassiopeia, especially if you take the hotfix into account. She's essentially getting 2 major buffs within the short span of a week or so. They're going to help her out a lot for sure, and she'll probably be viable now, so potentially consider trying her out and messing around with Cassiopeia once patch 6.10 hits live servers. And as for the biggest loser, it's certainly Malzahar. He's quite similar to Cassiopeia, just on the opposite end of the spectrum, in that he essentially is just receiving 2 major nerfs if you take into account the balance hotfix as well. However, Malzahar will definitely still be viable, he just won't be as insane as before, so you can totally still play him, just expect him to be noticeably weaker on this patch. As well, Talia is being released with patch 6.10, and she's a super awesome control mage champion that I had a lot of fun messing around with on the PBE, so definitely try her out if you get the chance, or at least read up on her abilities and be ready to play against her. As well, this patch really has a lot of buffs for some of the previously reworked mages, so maybe consider trying them out if you haven't already, or maybe consider picking up an assassin or something to counter them. And it looks like that's going to be it from me today. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you didn't, hit that dislike. Subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.